Hey everyone, this is Zach Weiss, and I am joined today by Garrett Jones. And we are, unsurprisingly, taking a look at a new watch from a very interesting brand. And it's a watch that does something that, well, is very uncommon. Garrett, you've spent some time with these. Why don't you tell us what we're looking at?
Yeah, so these are two samples from Xeric's newest project, the Timeline Retrograde. It's based on a 60s era's watch that's kind of been forgotten to time, and they're bringing back technology with a modern twist.
So it says it in the name, dual retrograde, but why don't you explain like how this watch, well, is different from your ordinary watch?
Yeah, so your typical watch, circular face with the hand that goes around the outside. It's kind of what everyone thinks of when you think of time. So that circular motion is kind of the standard, so to speak. Where these differ, aside from being in a square case, is that they go in an arc. So every time the hour completes, the minute hand snaps back to the top. And every 12 hours, that hour hand will snap back to the top as well, and they repeat.
And so to achieve this unique display, the dual retrograde display, how did Xeric go about that?
So rather than building an entire movement to do the retrograde, they've taken a Miyota 9015 movement and built a retrograde module to go on top of it to give them that complication, so to speak, without the traditional cost associated with watches of this style. And
so this is something that I personally think is like a really cool new direction that smaller brands, independents, and micros are being able to take, which is develop their own complications. Something very exciting to see, particularly building off of Miyota movements, which are straightforward but reliable. In your time with the watch and sort of doing some like research on this dual retrograde concept, this is very uncommon. Like what other watches have had this? Like what is the sort of context for this?
I mean, if you want to go way back into the 1800s, this movement kind of came to life and was used for a brief period of time in some clocks and some pocket watches, and then kind of forgotten. And then it made another appearance in and around the 60s with a few watches kind of at the beginning to middle of the quartz crisis. And then once again was forgotten. It continued to be used by some higher end Swiss luxury watches, but the technology really stayed in that upper echelon of watches and wasn't really brought into the mainstream until Xeric has kind of, like you said, built the module for it. And now it's able to kind of come back at a very reasonable price point for the complication that it is.
Retrograde in general, fairly uncommon, like you're saying, in affordable watches because it's not standard on any movement you can buy. And then recently, actually, Otsuka Low-Tech brought out a model. This is a Japanese independent brand. They actually won the GPHG last year. So Xeric's timing is really good because there's sort of renewed focus on this kind of movement. But where that other watch is a few $1,000s, and very, very, very hard to get, this one is more affordable. What is the pricing on this watch and how can one get it?
Like Xeric does with a lot of other watches, they are going to launch these on Kickstarter in mid to late February. So they will retail for around $1,000, but they're going to hit the Kickstarter in the $700 to $750 ballpark. Still expensive for a watch, but much more reasonable compared to anything else with this offering.
Yeah, it's all relative. That sounds very reasonable to me for a double retrograde mechanical, but obviously more expensive than maybe your average Miyota 9015 at this 100%. Point in time. So the watch itself, you spent some time with it, you've worn it, tell us a little bit about the design, what you think of it. It's certainly a striking looking watch.
Yeah, it's one of those pieces that when you see it, if you don't know what it is, it's a, hey, what are you wearing kind of watch. Like I said, it's a square case with rounded corners. It wears really, really well, despite being quite tall in the lug-to-lug at 47 millimeters. But it is rather thick, given that you have an entire watch movement and then a complication built on top of that. But that said, once it's on your wrist, you really don't notice it. It feels great. I personally think these look good. It's a very retro vibe all the way around, which I think is exactly what Xeric was going for these.
The guys behind Xeric are big fans of like the exotic and forgotten watches of the day. I think they based this one on some lip watches and like Wittenauers from the 60s, 70s that had that. I think it was a German movement, something like that, something really obscure, and good luck finding those watches. They're like, few and far between. So this takes from that era rather than going classical or going luxury, certainly. It's an hour and minute only watch, and the retrograde motion, the snapback happens like that. Did you find yourself like waiting for it? Like, how did you feel about the experience of actually looking at this, reading the time, and did you ever just miss it and just were like, there goes the retrograde?
Yeah, so it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to reading the watch, just because the hands aren't where I typically would expect them to be. That said, every time I do catch the snapback, it just puts a smile on my face, which is like, I love seeing it throughout the day. But the feeling of looking down at your watch right after it resets and realizing that you missed it, so frustrating.
So you like have to have a timer set for like 59 minutes every hour just to like observe it. It's a very interesting, way of displaying time. I can definitely see this taking more getting used to than some of the other sort of alternate arrangements, like a regulator or something, which still play off that circular motion. There's really nothing else quite like this. Having worn the watch and reviewed it, like, would you wear this? Would you buy it?
Xeric is kind of one of those brands that does two things really, really well. They use funky movements, or they do really cool space-themed watches. Clearly, this falls into that funky movement category. And like, personally, the retrograde motion and the retrograph is not something that I had been exposed to, and I really like it. I still need a bit more time to really get used to looking at this watch face. But personally, I would pick one up. I mean, it's definitely something different, and true to Xeric's form, they're doing these in a bunch of different colorways. So whatever your style is, you can find a timeline that kind of suits what you like.
Yeah, I mean, something that I look for in watches these days, having been doing this for far too long, is like unique experiences. And unique experience plus a good price tag really is like, it's like a winner for me. You know, the aesthetics, you're going to like them or not. I happen to love this like kind of minty blue color. There's something really fun and funky about this. I could see rocking it, you know. Yeah. The all gold, maybe a little much for me, but certainly stylish. And there's a few other colors as well.
Yeah, there definitely is. And you're right. The all gold and black is a very bold choice. But I think when you have a watch movement that's out there and you want to talk about it, going with a bold colorway doesn't hurt. And it kind of feels like, I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of like a 60s, 70s mobster kind of vibe. I mean, I just like, I love it. It makes me smile every time I look at it. And it's a fun piece, it's what watches should be. Yeah. They should be fun.
Yeah, I think you said something really like perfect in there, which it's a conversation starter.
Exactly.
You know, this is a conversation starting watch. Well, Garrett, thank you for taking us through the Xeric Timeline Dual Retrograde. I think I got that right. Yep. They're available now on Kickstarter?
They're launching February 25th. I don't know what the Kickstarter time period will be, but you can find all of those details on Kickstarter.
Check them out there, and thank you for watching this video. Give us a like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Head to warnerwound.com, of course, to check out more articles on cool, funky, affordable watches, and other watches too. We'll see you soon.